Up, good? Okay. At 6 o'clock. Okay, this is the Town of Woodbridge monthly Board of Finance meeting for Thursday, January 21st, 2016. And the first item on our agenda is public comments, and there is no one here, so we'll move on to item 2, which is Administrative Officer, Director of Finance Report, Mr. Genovese.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I have the report through the first 6 months of the year. It's a budgetary surplus of $125,000 through the end of the fiscal year. Brings our fund balance at 9.3%, almost 9.4%, which is about $4.3 million. A couple of highlights for you. First, the state we originally had a surplus in the intergovernmental revenue account from our FEMA award, but the state has announced 2 rounds of cuts to our grants. First, $16,000 in our pilot grants, which was the first round of cuts. The second just released was a $42,000 cut in our ECS funding, which is about $60,000 in cuts for the state, which brings me to the main reason why I think the car tax thing is a bad idea, because we're giving up our local source of revenue to the state, and whenever there's a problem that they have, they cut it. And if you think they're not going to cut the funding for the car tax cap in the future,
They have to.
of course they're.
I mean, they can't do that. God, I mean,
we're capping our orders at 32, and then
I know.
the difference between 32 and 38 or 37, whatever the mill rate is, you're going to reimburse us back in sales. I think it's sales tax money. But this is an example right here.
They can't.
Right.
They can't do that. They can't.
They can't afford it.
That's dishonest. My God, you're
So what's new?
Yeah, but you're telling the towns, right? You can only tax cars at 32 mils, which means everybody's car is going to be less.
Correct.
And then it'd be easy to calculate how much they're going to owe us.
Right.
So you're going to have to prepare a budget basically with a line item due from the state
Correct.
for car taxes.
Correct.
And we've got to get it.
I'm just bringing that
We've got
up.
to get it. We better make.
While you're on that topic, I think there's another issue with it, which is that the reimbursement is based on the fiscal year 15 mill rate.
Right.
So we're behind already for fiscal year 15.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's another issue.
So it does, and I was going to, this will make my first selectmen's report shorter. I will just mention now, since we're on the topic, that I have met with our state delegation. I think I may have mentioned that the other night. And they're looking at this, and we're setting up meetings with leadership in Hartford so that they will take a look at it and be sure they understand the impact that we would see. Because I think while the goal is so worthy, of what they want to do and what the aim is, but I think the impact on our real estate taxes will be so significant that and that's really what people look at, and that's the mill rate that people think about is on the real estate taxes. So we are initiating discussions about this, and there are other towns that are positioning.
Is this all motor vehicle? Like, what about these companies that have huge trucks? Is that considered motor vehicle?
As far as I know, it's all motor vehicle.
So that's a motor vehicle?
Yeah.
So you've got some companies, you take some towns.
I don't
with
know the
construction
specifics, nor I don't know if
I
there's
don't know
that
about that.
specific.
That's
The other thing
a
is
huge number.
we get a supplemental list every December.
Yeah, right. Oh.
And I'm not quite
Why
sure
do
how
Why
that.
do they get involved with stuff like that?
Well, I think that the concept is that it feels unfair that if you have the same car in one town and
Right.
and an adjoining town, and you could be paying twice as much tax in one town as the other. And with homes, it's very difficult to do that because homes are different and there are different associated values. But with a car, it feels there's a fundamental issue about it, but it's a very complicated
It is.
problem to fix.
Right.
And I think the negative impact for us and for towns like ours might not have been fully considered.
Okay, Tom.
Okay, so
I won't say that again.
on our expenditure side, we have some surpluses here. That first is general administration. We have surplus in property, auto, and liability insurance. We went out to bid for that, and we got a much better price than we thought. Parks is a $10,000 surplus due to vacant position. Debt service is a $12,000 savings. I wanted to talk about the country club pool for a little bit. The surplus that I indicate here assumes although I'm not sure exactly what's gonna happen, that there will be no activity this summer. Again, let me stress that I'm not sure how that's gonna wind up, but that's what this assumption is based on.
Okay.
If there is activity this summer, assuming last year's figures, it'd probably be, you'll see here, it's like a $48,000 deficit if you take the revenue deficit and the surplus expenditures, it's around 48. Assuming last year's numbers, if they're the same, it may be a little higher because I don't think the revenues will cover as much as the expenditures will, because the expenditures you'll probably spend most of that, but I'm not sure the revenues will recover as much, so maybe a little higher for this fiscal year.
Before you leave Country Club,
Yeah.
I just want to say that the Board of Selectmen was going to take up the issue at our last meeting, but then we recognized that the Recreation Commission had not made a recommendation, which they're going to do this coming Monday, and then the Board of Selectmen will make their recommendation. And we were taking it up prior to the budget discussion because of the need to decide on pool rates and start getting the word out if it's going to be open. But
Right.
understanding, of course, it still will be part of the budget in the end.
In the budget, you have to consider that should it go forward, the budget is actually 2 seasons, because you have the fall from one season and the spring for the next. Same thing with the golf.
Right.
So you have to, you're impacting 2 seasons.
And why is it that it won't be open or might not be open?
This-
Because
Because
it's losing money.
It's losing money.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Waste management, surplus is about $25,000, mostly in tip fees, some bulky waste and recycling. And the last Board of Education report I had, I'm not sure if there's an update on this, was a deficit of $186,000. We did receive the Amity surplus funds. It's about $315 maybe, $316 in that neighborhood. So you can see that there's an opportunity there to possibly cover this deficit with that, and still have some funds remaining for the budget for to offset next year's budget.
Well, hopefully they'll.
And hopefully this will go.
They'll
this next-
anticipate some surpluses too.
I'm hoping, yeah.
Usually do. Okay, any questions for Tony?
Related to the car tax, is it possible to do something with the general fund in terms of what we allocate for the budget? In terms of anticipate, let's say, not receiving the dollars, and if we do, then we'll
Yeah,
draw
it's funny you
down.
mention that. Well, you mean in the terms of the car tax?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do 2 parallel budget sheets. I was thinking about this. One with the reimbursement for the car tax, one without.
Okay,
So all the same as all the other assumptions being the same. So you can see the actual difference.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I assume we know the audit is done and it's all set. Scott's gonna be here.
Yeah, he's going to be here. I wanted to make a few comments on that.
Sure.
I know you probably don't have them, but the first is that Scott will be here next week to discuss it.
Okay.
They were handed out at the last
Yes.
budget meeting. So you'll see there's a report to the Board of Finance, which you can look through. And we didn't have any audit adjustments this year, so
Great.
that's a good thing. And the only other comment, 2 others. First is that our fund balance at the end of the year was just at 10%. If you consider our unassigned fund balance, which is basically the fund balance that's not encumbered or anything, it's at 10%. So some towns, however, use their total fund balance, which includes encumbrances. The thought being that if you ever have a problem, you can always cancel encumbrances. I mean, there's commitments that you can
Right.
break.
Right.
If you use that, it's 12.3%.
Wow.
So I just wanted to share that with you.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
is one of those methods preferred or a standard practice?
I think most people, as we do, use the unallocated, unassigned fund balance because it's more conservative.
Yeah.
So, it just means you're being a little more conservative. But some towns in rating presentations, they also use the higher number as a metric or as a barometer for. So, and the last thing is it shows the whenever we have notes outstanding. If you look at our total fund balance for all of our funds, it's a negative $600,000. But that's because when you have notes outstanding for capital projects, they're counted as a liability and as a, not, you don't count the cash as a revenue. So we have about, between the country club and the school, we had about $8 million, $8 million outstanding. So really, it's like $7.5 million because of the outstanding notes. I just didn't want people to be concerned that it looks like we have a negative fund balance here, which we actually don't.
Right.
That was it. That's it.
Okay. Woodbridge Board of Ed, we have for FYI report.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Tony?
No, that's it.
Okay, funding requests, there are two. Both line item transfers. And they are, the first one is for additional tree work within the Public Works budget as part of the town tree maintenance program. And there's a memo here from Cindy Pecca explaining, which is fine. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-07 in the amount of $15,000.
Second.
Any discussion on this? It's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the second is, again, a line item transfer, and it's just a revenue recognition. It's from the application fees to the expense account for payment of consultant fees, TPZ, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a procedural transfer of monies. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-08 in the amount of $2,010.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our regular monthly meeting, it seems like it was eons ago, on Thursday, November 19th, and I will move acceptance of the minutes of the monthly Board of Finance meeting for November 19th, 2015 as presented.
Second.
Any corrections, adjustments, et cetera? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. All right, and I think Karen is asking us to, you want to vote on this, Karen?
Yes,
All right,
please.
these are the two capital budget meetings for
Yes,
next
add it.
November. All right, so I'll move approval of, or the addition of November 29th, 2016 and December 1st, 2016 for the purposes of a capital budget meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Ellen?
Thank you. So it has been a long time since the Board of Finance met, and I have a longer update than usual, but I didn't put everything in. One thing I want to mention now is that, the primaries are coming up in April, and we just received notification from the Secretary of the State's office that for anyone who is interested in changing his or her party affiliation from one major party to another. So this does not affect unaffiliated voters, but only if you want to go from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat. The deadline is January 26th. So that's important to know. Other deadlines don't come up until April. I've been continuing my focus on economic development. I attended the CERC, that's the Connecticut Economic Resources Council presentation in New Haven. They're the people who helped us with our summit here in Woodbridge. That was very interesting. I've been continuing to visit local businesses. These included Birchwoods at Oak Lane, that's the restaurant at Oak Lane. Janet Rozier's college consulting business, which she does out of her home in Woodbridge. And just this week, Adrienne Smith, who does curtain calls, she sews curtains and has shades and things also out of her home. We have amazing businesses here, and the visits are so interesting to learn more about the details and complexities of all the things people do. I've also been attending Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce events, including a legislative panel this week. I think that's very important for our economic development. They've been very helpful and receptive to us. And I met with Bill Purcell, who is a Woodbridge resident and CEO of the Valley Chamber of Commerce. Jody Alant and Jamie Scott joined me to share ideas for Woodbridge economic development. On the community building activities, we had our second Long Wharf reception night with discounted tickets and a lovely reception for Woodbridge residents. The play was Measure for Measure, and it was extremely well done. Even Bob didn't want to leave it intermission. It was great.
That's good.
There was a related event before the show at the library, which was terrific. It was the costume designer.
Mhm.
Also, the Wisdom of Woodbridge lecture series is really off to a terrific start. I think we've already talked here about the first one was Mary Papazian, who's the president of SCSU. The second one was Rob Klee, who's the commissioner of Energy and Environmental Protection. His topic was Talking Trash, and it was about recycling. It was very interesting. He's an excellent speaker. And this week was Nancy Yao Masbach, who talked about Chinatowns and Chinese towns. And she was terrific. We had about 50 people at this last one. She talked about the sort of history of Chinese migration in America, and it was fascinating. It was really terrific. It's also been wonderful working with the JCC, which is a real community resource, and we're working together to promote each other's activities. I've also continued to really focus on appreciating our town employees and volunteers who do so much for the town. We had the employee holiday luncheon and the board and commission holiday party. I know it seems like a very long time ago, but they were very well attended. I was at the Beecher Road School holiday concert, which is amazing. There's one music teacher who has hundreds of students in various bands and orchestras, and they were great. The Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department had Santa at the firehouse, and Mrs. Santa, of course, was Beth, who's unbelievable as Mrs. Santa. I was at the Friends of the Library holiday reception and Chief Marcucci's retirement reception. And also, I initiated the Person of the Month recognition. And I believe I mentioned last time, the first one was Bob Tucker, who really supervised the building of the pavilion at Camp Whiting in honor of a scout who had passed away. The second Person of the Month was the Friends of the Library. Betsy Yagla and I spent a long time deciding if the Person of the Month could be a group, and would we still call it Person of the Month, but we took the liberty of having Person of the Month. The Friends of the Library have created Book Alley in the corridor between the old Woodbridge room and the library, and if you haven't seen it, it's wonderful. And for $1 or 50 cents or $2, you can get great used books, wonderful for children and grandchildren. Friends of the Library was second, and then the third Person of the Month just recently was Rita Gdansky, who retired from the Amity Board of Education after 14 years and had also taught at Amity Middle School for 16 years.
Have we replaced her yet?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it's Robin Burke. Robin Burke.
Oh, Robin Burke.
Robin Burke,
Okay.
yeah. The Board of Selectmen just approved that.
Okay.
I also was at the Police Commission when they recognized 2 police officers and town resident Larry Dickovic for rescuing someone in a car accident that occurred on Baldwin Road. The car crashed and was engulfed in flames. I have not seen the video. I think Tony has.
I have.
Apparently it was
You
just
can
a
actually see
remarkable
the flames
recovery.
go across the car as he's pulling him out of the car. And
Really?
literally, as he pulls him out, the thing
Wow.
explodes.
And
Oh
Mr.
my
Dickovic
It's
just
that
ran out of
close.
his house in the night and helped with that. So
Wow.
well deserving of the recognition. I met with Tony and First Selectman Gorski and Sal Capola from Derby to talk about the animal control and how we're trying to reassess the different proportionate payments from the different towns. And we've applied for a steep grant to help us with refurbishing or building a new animal control facility, which I think everyone agrees we need. We've met with the state police about security updates for town buildings. And I have good news on the microgrid. The siting council approved the location of the fuel cell at the high school, and that was the last impediment to going ahead. So at this point, we expect UI to begin work in the spring and complete the project this year.
By
That's what
the
they told
fall.
us.
Yeah.
We're also following up on our virtual net metering project at the Cap landfill, where we want to do the solar farm. And virtual net metering is the program that would allow us to generate the energy there and be able to use it in town buildings. There is a cap on municipal virtual net metering, and the cap has been met. So our project, along with others, is on hold right now, and we've been taking a very active role in trying to get the cap lifted. We hosted 11 towns here in Woodbridge whose projects are on hold, and invited the chairs of the State Energy Committee, and they were both here, as well as the Senate ranking member, and Senator Crisco was here. And yesterday at the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, the House Chair of the Energy Committee mentioned that as one of her top priorities for this session, so we're very optimistic about that. That should be moving ahead. And also, when we met with the state delegation, they will keep an eye out on this virtual net metering issue. They have also already sent in support letters for our STEEP grant, which was great, and I just want to compliment Betsy Yagla on getting that done so efficiently. They're aware of our concern on the property tax cap now, since we met with them. They are keeping an eye on our school construction grant, which is very important for the Beach Road School project. We anticipate getting a few $1 million back.
So far, we've received about $1 million.
That's great.
So it's reducing the cost. And for that, I want to also particularly thank Senator Schlossberg, who's the chair of the Education Committee, and watching that for us. But certainly Senator Crisco and Representative Clarities are also watching that. And as we always do, we talk to them about the special ed formula, and they are well aware of the problem it is. They're looking at it again, but I am not optimistic, nor were they, about imminent change. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, liaison reports. I'll start with Amity. We met on January 11th, which is not this past Monday, the Monday before. And of course, the biggest discussion was the budget. They also had the auditors there, and they ended up receiving a very clean audit, so that's good news. As far as the budget goes, I think we've all heard about it, but just to summarize, our percentage is going up fairly significantly, and this sounds like nothing, but we ended up, there are a total of 59 fewer students at Amity projected for 2016-2017. Even though there's a 59 student reduction, Woodbridge has 7 more kids, Orange has 44 less, and Bethany has 22 less. So with 7 more kids, our percentage is going up. Of course, they divide the budget by the number of kids, and our percentage is going up by 1.087%. And on a $48 million budget, I don't think you need to anticipate what that means. But currently, the current estimates are that our allocation is going up by $941,570, or 6.97%. Orange, despite the fact they have 44 fewer students, if you think about it, they have 44 fewer, we have 7 more. Their allocation is going up by $410,368, and Bethany, with 22 fewer students, is going to have to pay an additional $101,301. So, needless to say, this is a tough year for Woodbridge, and considering the fact that we're dealing with the Woodbridge Board of Ed with a deficit, it's going to be a very interesting and challenging year. I was encouraged with some of the budgets we saw the other day that hopefully we can work this out. But there's nothing you can do. It's what we do. And again, Dr. Dumais is coming here to our next meeting in February, and when you see his presentation, it's all about salaries, benefits, and special ed. In discretionary spending, there's actually a reduction. So,
How about the health, the self-insurance for the health?
yeah, it's doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's doing good. Not as well. We'll see.
Yeah.
Not as much of a surplus as last year. So that's where we're at. We're gonna. It's a lot of money, and it's tough. It's a tough time, but all the other previous years, we've always seemed to come out on the positive end of it. We've always had less, and that's why Orange is always screaming. Although I have a feeling they're going to be screaming this year too, because 44 fewer students and a $410,000 increase. I'm sure we're going to be hearing from them. So that's pretty much it. We're going to be building this into the budget, and we'll see how it goes. So with that, Paul, do you have anything?
Sure. Let's see. During the holiday season, the fire department distributed some toys to 18 different families. 29 kids that couldn't afford gifts were able to get toys, thanks to the fire department. They were also able to drop off 1,000 toys to the Yale Toy Closet, which was very nice. In terms of finance, the data processing line item and technical supplies and repairs and so on will be slightly over. We're at, I think, 85% on data processing and so on. So hopefully it'll be a line item transfer.
Yeah.
We may need a little bit more money there. Our engine 7 is in as of December 19th, I think, but they were still prepping it when we had the meeting.
And it's beautiful. Did you
Yeah,
see
it's
it? It's really
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You should get that in the paper.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Let
We
people
should.
know, we do buy vehicles, so,
Yeah, always, but so.
yeah.
And, oh yeah, the chief did mention something about the MedCom agreement. From the team looking at it, it looked like the team seems to feel that it's superfluous and that we probably shouldn't sign that agreement or don't need the agreement. Because we have an agreement with, it's AMR that does the ambulance. In their judgment, it's redundant because we pay AMR to do the ambulatory service, and the CMed contract apparently is for them to be in contact with the hospital as they're transporting the injured party. So it may not be necessary, but I think the chief can speak a little bit more fully about that.
Tony and I have spent quite a bit of time on this,
Mhm.
and at this point, Jerry Weiner is talking to the attorney in West Haven.
West Haven, yeah.
Because the mayor of West Haven is heading up this new entity.
Mhm.
We've concluded that it's really in the town's best interest to go ahead with the contract. It's certainly much less expensive than the agreement we had
Mhm.
before.
It is.
I think it would be $6,000.
$6,000, yeah.
Down from, we were paying about
18,
$18,000.
yeah.
There may be some redundancy in public safety in going ahead with this, but we really felt when it comes to public safety, we'd rather have a little bit of redundancy and not risk not having everything that we need. So at this point, we're going ahead with it. If it turns out over time that we really don't need it, we can always cancel it. I think it's a 6 month notice or 3 months notice. But Jerry Weiner did follow up with AMR and with the other attorney. There are some aspects of the contract that needed revision, and the fire commission chair and the chief came over to talk with us about some issues in the contract itself. Also, my name had nothing to do with Scalator, the way they wrote it, but that, they were fixing. But they are amending some of the contract, and it was very good points that the fire chief brought up.
Okay, so we'll hear more about this.
Yeah.
if you- okay.
And I think that's all.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Well, EMS didn't meet. They did spend a lot of time on that contract, as if they're probably working, so they supported it, and there might be some redundancy, but it does seem to fill some needed gaps, and I think we're well served by that board. They really do look into that and try to watch out for our best interest in overseeing the AMS contract. I did go to the January 4th meeting of Human Services, and the bulk of the meeting was spent on the budget. So but they did provide a lot of services between fuel and baskets during the holiday season, as they always do, and they're continuing to work on programming for the residents. That was it. Oh, there are 2 job postings for a kitchen supervisor and a kitchen assistant. So those jobs are posted, I believe, now.
Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you. Sandy?
The Library Commission met on January 11th, and actually Terry Gilbertson came to present the electric car charging station option. It's just an FYI for the library, but also to talk about where the library would prefer to have that type of station. And they opted for the larger parking lot as opposed to the parking lot on the side. or maybe it's
No,
It's the other way
it's the
around.
reverse.
Yeah,
I'm
it's the other
sorry.
way around,
I'm sorry about that. Just because they felt it would be more confusing if it was actually in the main parking lot, and they didn't want to, especially from a handicapped accessible perspective. So did the Board of Selectmen decide about whether or not to proceed with that?
No.
No.
They didn't decide.
So they didn't decide because
Okay.
several questions came up. I believe they've all been answered now.
Mhm.
So we're very likely to go ahead with it. There was some discussion of whether there was a better location for it, maybe some, farther away. We have one at the Public Works building, so
Mhm.
there was some discussion, maybe we could get one more in, the Amity district. But I think the conclusion will be that it will end up at the library.
I mean, I think that's a convenient location for people who
That's the
are
idea.
going in
Yeah,
for,
that's the idea,
even if
yeah.
it's just a half hour, 45 minutes, I mean, you're doing it to just recharge. It's not for someone to sit there for 4 hours, so.
Well, that's
Anyway,
unclear, but.
okay. Anyway, they were pleased to be consulted about that, so. They did have a question, though, about who pays for the electricity and kind of whose budget is that going to show up on. So I think if we could answer that question,
I
tried
did.
to.
I spoke with the
Okay.
library director and the chair, and
Okay,
I said the use should be negligible,
yes,
and I doubt you'll even notice the use. But if it becomes a problem, we'll be sure
Right.
to address it for you.
yes. I told them the money all comes from the same place,
Right,
so it
right.
doesn't really matter.
Right.
but
True.
Again, everybody's concerned about their own budget.
Well, Tony calculated if the charging station were used 24/7, 365 days a year, it would be about $6,000.
Yeah, it's about $5,000-$6,000.
And
That's if it's used 24
very
hours a
Yes,
day,
yes,
7
7
days a week. Yeah.
Not likely.
Oh, my gosh.
So it's negligible, really.
Okay. They are also looking for the young adult librarian. This was the new position that Eric created. And the interviews, I think, were they're this week. So hopefully they will come back with some type of recommendation and find a
Great.
candidate they liked. They are also looking at updating some of the signage in the library. Many of the signs are either falling down or you can't read them, that they've kind of rubbed off. So Jim Scott, I guess, who has done some signage for the town, is putting in a bid for that. The delivery system continues to be a problem, and there's not a whole lot that the library can really do about it. The state, though, has finally taken on the responsibility. They've hired their own drivers and they're leasing vehicles for them. So hopefully starting in February, things will get better, but we'll see. Okay. I was not able to go to the Finance Committee meeting for the Board of Ed. But the figure that I have, Tony, is $218,000 as the bottom line. That's their estimate at this point. The biggest news, as you all know, you received the email from Dr. Stella, is that he is retiring at the end of June after, I think, it will be 10 and a half years.
Stella.
Stella. And I think we could not have asked for anyone to make any better contributions that he's made. And he's just had a phenomenal impact on the students, the teachers, town residents, and hopefully we will be able to acknowledge his contributions. I do not know what the current plans are in terms of who will be on the search committee, but I would hope that it would go beyond just the Board of Ed. So, have you heard anything?
I have not, no.
Margaret Hamilton and Steve Fleischman did come in to meet with me. I believe they're contemplating the commission as the search committee.
Okay.
I actually wanted to mention that wasn't the main topic. They just wanted to say that they really thought it was very important that they hire a search firm. So I want to let you all know that I reassured them that the funds would be there for search. I think they'll probably have the funds themselves, but that we agreed that it would be appropriate to have a search firm for this position.
Right. I think that you will find that the budget for next year is extremely reasonable. It started off at over 5%, and it's now down below 2.5%, even with the increases in terms of special ed.
That's good.
And
So
they have new contracts this year, or they don't?
They renewed this year.
This year, the current
Yeah.
year that we're in. And the only other point is that they are going to be offering early retirement incentives again. They can never predict actually who will take advantage of those, but they are going to do that this year. That's it.
Okay. And one last thing, this is what we've all heard about. This is the current edition of the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award presented to the town of Woodbridge. And while some want to minimize this as nothing more than a meaningless whatever, I think we all agree this is a very, very significant achievement. It tells everybody that the budget that the town of Woodbridge presents to the residents and to whoever else cares to look at it is a quality document, and I think it's a wonderful award. It's become automatic because Tony is so good at what he does, and Karen's help.
Yeah.
And so congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you.
again, I think that we all can agree that this is significant. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? We'll see you Tuesday.
I don't wanna leave this.
Okay.